Hi, welcome back to this video. So what we saw earlier was how variables are defined and how they can be declared and assigned in different statements and how we can multiply them or do a simple operation. Now, generally, while working with numbers, you will mostly be using int, where you will only be storing whole numbers. But there will be a time where you will come across numbers with decimals. So if you try to assign a number with a decimal to a variable, it will automatically be inferred as a double type. So double type can have decimals. They take more space. So if you want a decimal number with less space, you can use f at the end, which would make it a floating point, which take little less space than doubles. So now when I run this program, it's actually going to print the number with the decimal space, which means that this is actually a double kind of number which has been printed. So now when I multiplied months in year, which is of type integer, with monthly salary, which is a double or float in our case, it will actually convert the number into the upper variable type, which in this case is the float because it has the decimal spaces. So integer and float will then be combined to the floating point. So if I declare something like this, so if the variable I'm assigning to is double and I'm trying to assign a floating point to it, it will give an error. So what you can do is, instead of going and changing everything to double, you can just enclose them in a bracket and do to double, and then just run the program again. So what we saw here are two types of conversions. One is implicit, that the compiler is doing on its own. So it is converting an int into a float, and then we are using to double to convert that floating point to a double. So one is happening on its own while the other is happening because we are telling it to do it. Now the next thing that I want you to see is how fractions work with integers. So let us create a gap here, and so if I print this, basically what will happen is, so what is happening is I have divided 10.0 by 2. So this becomes a double because the higher value will be considered. And then we are dividing it and storing it. And then after division, we are printing this directly. Now, if I were to assign this to an integer, suppose, so as expected, we will have to convert it. And then if I print the result and execute my program, you can see that the decimal has gone. That is not a problem because our decimal was 0. But in case we had a 9 instead of 10, what will happen is, because the decimal is gone, the decimal will get fully truncated. So it will not round off your value. The decimal part will be fully truncated. If you are converting any double, if you are converting any double or floating point to an integer. This is something which you should remember while working between number types. Now, because we are just printing numbers and names, this output is really confusing. So we really don't know what is happening here. So suppose I want to print something like, because this is my name, and I want to print like my name is colon Ankur Kumar. How can I do it? So Kotlin actually allows you to add strings. Now this add is not in the literal or arithmetic terms, but it is just going to concatenate strings, means the first string and then the second string. Let us print it. So here you can see my name is, and then I'm printing the name, which is the variable. Now there is something different which has been provided by Kotlin, which is not in Java, is something called string template, where you can actually directly use the variable inside the string. So instead of actually concatenating strings by using the plus operator, I can actually do is $name. So what this will do is this dollar will tell the compiler that the string that follows the name till a space or we reach the end of the string is the name of a variable. So if I now run this program, we see the same output, but we are not using the plus operator here. Now, why you needed to know about the plus operator is because Java does not have this string template property, this string template feature. So if you're reading Java code, you will have to know that there is something called string concatenation, which uses the plus operator. Now, there are two things when we talk about string templates. First is how we use a variable, and the second is how we use expressions. So something like this. So if I want to directly use a variable name, I will use dollar and then the variable name. But if I want to put an expression, like I want to evaluate 5 plus 4, or I want to use a property of a variable, I have to use this expression way where after the dollar I need to put this open and close curly braces and then put my expression inside it. So coming back to the program, what I will do is instead of variable called yearly salary, I will directly try to evaluate it inside my print statement. So I will write yearly salary and then dollar, open and close curly braces, and inside that my expression. And then if I execute my program, I can see that it has calculated my yearly salary and printed it here. So these are the two ways of string templates. First one is for using a variable with only the dollar sign, and the second one is for when you want to use an expression. Now, what if you wanted to print dollar itself? So suppose if I want to print dollars in front of my salary, how will it be? So I can just add dollar and it would still get printed. So this dollar will not become part of the evaluation or expression, and this dollar will get printed as is. So you can see yearly salary $120,000. So what if I don't want this expression to be evaluated? So we can escape this by having this backslash. So what this backslash will do is it will tell the compiler to ignore this dollar sign which is coming next. So this will become just like another dollar sign in a string. It will just be a value. It will not evaluate to an expression. So the backslash is not printed, but everything up after that was not evaluated by the compiler, but printed as it would be written in a string. Now, one more thing to consider when we are doing string concatenation and not string templates is that you can. So first, let me do undo. So what I can do is I can very well write yearly salary colon space plus yearly salary. This is going to, yeah, sorry, missed that. So this is going to work fine. But if I put the number before the string, something like this will not work. You can see that we are getting error here. So generally what is the error is that you cannot have a number first and then add string to it. You can add a number to a string, but not the other way. So this is just how the compiler works. Because once it picks up this operator and it sees there is a number before it, it is actually expecting to do the arithmetic plus and not the string concatenation. That is why this error has been thrown here. So let us just do undo, go back. Okay. So you can see there are a lot of things which have been highlighted by the compiler. So these are nothing but warnings and some suggestions that the compiler provides to you. So if you hover your mouse over them for some time, or you double click, you will see this light bulb, which will actually give you these warnings or suggestions which you can act upon. What I can do is I can click that. So as you see, it has actually combined the declaration and assignment. And the next thing what it is telling me is we can remove the explicit type. So because the value is 10, it's a number. Compiler itself knows that this will be an int type, so there is actually no need to tell it otherwise. Now, if you see there is still something, I'll just hover around and see what is the suggestion. So variable is never modified and can be declared immutable using val. So as discussed earlier, vals are something which is a value, so are not going to change their value or whatever memory reference they are pointing to during the course of execution. So I can just click here, change to val, and all the warnings are done. Now let us see the other warnings. Double click light bulb, change to val. Now because the monthly salary also didn't change, I know that is going to be a suggestion. Even the yearly salary. And you can see that because we are doing string concatenation, Kotlin is actually telling us to convert it to template. So you can see we have these suggestions. So when you're writing code in Kotlin, even in Android Studio, these suggestions and warnings will be given to you. And you can actually use them to make your code better. So we have only one warning left, which is this one. And we have removed that warning also. So if I run the program, the output will be same as before, but we have got rid of all the warnings. So it's showing my name as typo. I'll just add it to the dictionary. So now what you can see is we have this green tick mark here without any zigzag lines or curly waves below it. This means that there are no problems in this code. While this is a small piece of code and this green tick is actually possible, when you're writing a big program or when you're working on your Android application, there will be a lot of developers who will write the code and you who will be adding to it or might be writing it from scratch. So while you can get rid of most of the warnings and suggestions, it is highly possible that you will not be able to get rid of all of them. So keep an eye out for these warnings and suggestions and try to make your code as better as possible. But you don't have to actually go after each and every one. And when you work on these suggestions and warnings, you will eventually get better at writing them correct in the first shot itself. So this is all for variables and strings. Let us catch up in the next video. Thanks for watching.